Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Megan Bentley, and I'm the events coordinator for the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. We are excited you're able to join us for today's series, the Caregiver Community Connection C3, presented by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and powered by our partners at Wounded Warrior Project. We're also very pleased to have the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs join us as partners for this series as well. Today's C3, Finding Freedom Through Tapping, will feature Lauren Fonville with Yoga for Caregivers. Before we get started, I want to mention to all attendees that this session is recorded and will be available in the Guides tab on HHCC or on our website. Also, we would love to hear suggestions on future topics to discuss and speakers to feature. If you have any ideas, please send them to us via email at events@elizabethdolefoundation.org. With all of that said, we will take questions towards the end. Today's moderator, Colton Whitaker, will be hanging out in the chat box. Be sure to submit any questions using the Q&A box located in the Zoom control panel. We'll be taking note of all the questions to get them answered live during our Q&A. Today, we'll be selecting 4 winners from our meeting participants during the episode. To enter into drawing, just engage with us in the chat. Today's winners will receive a free Hidden Heroes yoga mat. Today's C3 features closed captioning. If you would like to disable it, go to the live transcript button in the Zoom control panel and click Disable Auto Transcription. It can be disabled at any time during the meeting. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Lauren as we get started. Lauren.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and be talking to you all about EFT. I invite you to turn your cameras on if you can, just simply because I like seeing faces, and this will be an interactive session. So again, my name is Lauren Nicole Fonville, and I am a certified EFT practitioner. And today I'm going to be talking to you about EFT. So what is EFT? EFT stands for the Emotional Freedom Technique. And what I'm going to be doing over the next 45 minutes to an hour is really talking to you about what EFT is, why it works, how it works, and sharing with you how you can utilize this in your own life. So what is EFT, right? It's this process, and I'm just going to demonstrate here, of gently tapping on certain points of your upper body. And while you're doing this, you're also acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling. And I know that it can look a little silly doing this, right? So if you're not familiar with this and you're just seeing it for the first time, know that when you start to practice this, yeah, maybe you will feel a little silly, and that's okay. We're all going to be doing it. We're all going to be doing it together. So EFT is a science-backed process, and it has been shown to help with a wide variety of conditions, and those conditions are across the board, from anxiety and stress and overwhelm to depression. They've been shown to help. It's been shown to help with PTSD, fibromyalgia, insomnia. So those are just to name a few. And I know that can be a lot, saying that this whole idea of tapping on yourself can help with physical pain as well as emotional pain. I know that when I was first introduced to this technique, I was definitely very skeptical of it. So if you're sitting there feeling skeptical that this could help you, know that I get it. And this is not one of those things that you have to believe in for it to work. There is a lot of science behind it. I will say that for this process to be most useful and helpful to you, there is one thing that you really need to be practicing while doing it, and that's simply focusing your attention on the emotions that you're feeling and the physical sensations that you're feeling. So for example, if we are going to be talking about anxiety and stress, you need to not just be thinking about what you're going to be having for dinner later. You need to be present and in the moment. So about 5 years ago was when I was first introduced to this technique. And my husband is military. I'm a military spouse. And we found out that he was going to have to go on deployment. And this was going to be our first deployment since having kids. And I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. And this, I credit this practice, as well as my yoga practice and journaling, with really helping me get through this time. And because it's helped me so much is why I'm so passionate about sharing it with others. I am, my father is also my mother's caregiver. So I know, a lot of the stress that he is under in being a caregiver. And I've shared this practice with him, and he finds it helpful as well. And it's part of the reason why I'm here today sharing this with all of you. So just know that as we go through this, I just ask that you, be open-minded to the practice, and tune in to how you're feeling as we move through it. So like I said, I was introduced to this about 5 years ago, and it was a group setting similar to this. It was online, and I was walked through a process that I'm going to walk you through today. And I found myself in the beginning of it, I was very stressed out. And by the end of it, my body felt better. My body felt lighter. And while I didn't really understand why, because it just seemed silly to me that tapping on yourself is going to make you feel better, it helped. And that's all that really mattered to me. So I ask you to keep that in mind too, that if this is something that is, that you notice, oh, it does make me feel better, don't worry so much about why it's making you feel better. Just sit in that feeling that it's working and that it's helping you. So how does EFT work? When I describe EFT, I often compare it to acupuncture, because acupuncture is a practice that's simply more widely known and people are familiar with. So when you go to an acupuncturist, they take needles and they put them in at certain points of the body. The points of the body where those needles are placed are the end points of the meridians. And the meridians are how energy moves through your body. So just like how your blood moves through your veins, your energy moves through your meridians. And what's happening, instead of putting needles in, what we're doing with tapping with EFT is gently applying acupressure to these points. And we're tapping on these points and breathing, and again, focusing on the emotions that we are feeling. And a little bit of the science behind how this works is that as you're tapping on these points, what's happening is that a message is being sent to the amygdala in the brain. And the amygdala is the part of the brain that controls fight or flight. So when you are on, and that part of the brain is there to protect us, right? So when you are in a situation where you need to protect yourself, like say there is a dog that's growling at you, right? All of a sudden those reflexes kick in and you're ready to like run, or you're ready to fight back. So it's there to protect us. However, when we're dealing with day-to-day life and anxiety and stress, it's also sending that message to the amygdala, and that alarm center is going off. And I like to visually demonstrate this. So if we just think of my hand for a moment, this is called the hand model, and there's a psychologist who came up with this. So if you think of this part of my hand, my knuckles here, as the front of my forehead, the prefrontal cortex. So when you're in a state of calm and well-being, right, the information is going up the brainstem to the prefrontal cortex so that you can make good, sound decisions. Now, when you're under stress and overwhelm and you're trying to make a decision, sometimes it feels like I can't even think straight, right? I feel like probably all of us have felt that at some time when you're so overwhelmed with something. So that's like when the information is coming up the brainstem, the amygdala is going off because you're so stressed, that fight or flight is happening. And so it's like an alarm, and the prefrontal cortex is going offline. So the information literally isn't able to get to that area. And so you can't make those sound decisions. So when you're tapping, what's happening is a message is being sent to the amygdala and saying, hey, you don't need to be in fight or flight. And as you tap, that prefrontal cortex is coming back online so that you can make those sound decisions. And there was recently a study done by Dr. Peter Stapleton, and it showed that by tapping on these points, tapping and breathing, and going through this practice reduces the amount of cortisol that's being pumped through your body by up to 40%. And that's a really, really big number. by simply just tapping and breathing. And it can be done, that shift can happen within minutes. And so if you take anything away from today, as we go through the practice and I share where the points are with you, notice which points you're naturally drawn to, and pick your favorite one. And the next time you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, simply tap on that point and breathe, and see how that begins to shift how you feel. Now, this practice can bring up lots of different emotions as you're doing it. So as we move through it, if you start to feel tears come, know that that's normal. If you start to yawn, that's something that's very common as well. It can bring up these emotions. Now, as humans, we typically, right, when we experience feelings like anger, frustration, overwhelm, these are not feel-good feelings, right? So typically what we do is we push that stuff down, and then we redirect our attention. We distract ourselves because we don't want to deal with that. And sometimes, sometimes we can do that in healthier ways. Sometimes it's, you're going to the gym all the time, or maybe not so healthy ways where you're, coming home and snacking on the couch or drinking a few glasses of wine at night. And EFT is a practice that really allows you to acknowledge what you're feeling, and when you're acknowledging what you're feeling, then you can move through it. Because when you're stuffing it down and ignoring it, right, that can maybe work for a little bit of time. You push it all down, you redirect your attention somewhere else, but eventually I think of it as it just like gets to a point where it comes out. And sometimes it can come out physically, and sometimes it can come out, like you're just yelling at somebody who doesn't necessarily deserve to be yelled at. So when I generally ask the question, when you feel stressed, where do you feel it in your body? People have an immediate response to that. For me, it's in my neck, it's in my jaw, my shoulders. I feel really tense there. But other people, sometimes they get headaches. Some people get stomach aches. And EFT is a way of acknowledging how you're feeling so that it can release, and you don't have to have that, that you don't have to have it come out in that way. It doesn't have to manifest physically or emotionally. And I'm just going to share my personal story with EFT. So like I said, I was introduced to it in a group session like this. And then I went on to book a call with this woman because I was so intrigued with how different it made me feel in just a short period of time. And when I learned that this could help with physical pain, I decided that that's what I wanted my focus to be at that time. I was dealing with a lot of TMJ pain, so jaw pain. And I told the woman this, and the way that a typical session works is that she would ask she would ask me a lot of questions, and then she would repeat what I was saying, reflecting back to me what I was saying, and she would say a sentence, and we would tap on the points, and I would repeat her. And so she was asking me how it felt that I was dealing with this pain, and I was frustrated, and that it was affecting my day-to-day life. And then she asked me what other emotions were coming up. And I was very angry that I was dealing with this. And there was also this feeling of anger towards the dentist because my TMJ pain was triggered after I had my wisdom teeth removed, and the dentist had to dislocate my jaw to take my wisdom teeth out. And I was very angry about this. Now, mind you, this session that I was having was about 15 years after after I got my wisdom teeth out. So I was not consciously aware of how much anger I still had towards this dentist. So that came out. So we're tapping on, and she would say something like, even though I'm so angry, that's just how it is. And we would tap and say that same thing on all these points. And then that anger turned into this feeling of betrayal. Like I felt betrayed by the doctor because I didn't know that he was going to remove or dislocate my jaw. And then this is where it gets interesting. And this is why I share this story, because as we're tapping and we're talking about betrayal, and I was tapping on, I feel so betrayed by this doctor, I had what I felt was a random thought. And it was a thought of how I was betrayed by a friend. And I said to this woman, she kept encouraging me to share anything that came to mind. And I said to her, I don't think that this is related, but I just had this thought of this friendship that or I was betrayed by in this friendship. And the woman said, okay, well, let's tap on it anyway. And so we kept tapping. And we got into the details of that situation. And eventually it led to me feeling sad that friendship had ended. And so what started with me focused on this pain and on discomfort that I was feeling in my jaw ended with me talking about how I felt sad that I lost this friend. And never in a million years would I have connected those dots. But when she asked me to check back in with my jaw pain, and in the beginning, she asked me to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. How intense was the sensation that I was experiencing in my jaw? And I had rated it at an 8. And by the end of the session, it had gone down to a 2. And so that just blew me away. And I had no idea that so much of this was manifesting itself. All of these feelings and emotions had been manifesting itself in my jaw and in my shoulders. And so I share that with you because that is how sometimes this works. Because a lot of the time in life, there are these experiences that we've had earlier in life that impact who we are. And sometimes we aren't even cognitively aware of how these past events are impacting us today. And these types of things can come up in these sessions, and then you can really move through them and let them go. And then you will feel physically better, because there are so much of the time, there are emotional contributions to physical pain. So knowing that, sometimes in a session, it can happen, like with my first session, I found really significant relief, but that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It depends on how long you've been how long it's been an issue for you, and also how ready you are for healing. And that's part of the process too. And it's also, I like to speak in analogies a lot. And so it's this whole idea of, like, if you're gardening and you're pulling out the weeds, let's say there's a dandelion and you pull off the flower part of the dandelion, well, it's going to come back, right? And the next time you go back and you weed it and you pull the flower off and you pull the leaves off, and then, it's going to take a little bit longer to come back. But eventually, if you get to the root of it, you can be free of it. And I know that's not to say with, like, anxiety, right? Anxiety is a part, and stress is a part of, it can be a part of daily life. And so having this tool that you can repeatedly use to help you move through it is really, really, really helpful. And the great thing is that there's no negative side effects. There's no reason to not give it a try. And honestly, that's why I first started when I went to this group call and they were talking about tapping on yourself. And I thought, that's just so far out there. But I was at a point where, well, I'm so stressed out. Why not give this a shot and see how it goes? So again, the main thing that you need to know, that as we move through this, is that you need to tune in and give your conscious attention to how you're feeling and what's coming up for you. And know that if you feel silly as you're doing it, it's okay. It's part of the process. So this is a very calming, grounding process. It helps you to release these stuffed emotions, and it can also help with trauma. I mentioned earlier that this is something that can be used for PTSD, and it has been very, very helpful to people that suffer from PTSD. And so a little bit of how that works, right? So when we have something traumatic that happens to us at some point in our life, and then you move forward in time, and then there's these triggers that can bring you right back to that time where the trauma happened. And sometimes that is a sound, sometimes it's a smell. And when you're doing tapping, it is a very gentle approach to dealing with trauma. You never have to go deep into the details of what happened. You never actually even have to speak out loud, like what happened when you're working with a practitioner. There are lots of different techniques that you can use. As long as you're feeling it, you don't need to say it out loud. You can use like a code word when you're tapping and moving through the practice. But it helps to create this space between the trauma that happened and the physical sensation in your body. And it's not going to erase the memory, but it's going to help you not have that physical sensation. So when you hear that loud bang, maybe you won't have your heart racing and your mind starts to spin. It helps you to stay calm and grounded in the moment. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how because the trauma can be really dealing with trauma can be challenging, and so I find it helpful to kind of understand how the brain processes traumatic memories differently than regular memories. So I'm going to just give you an example of how a regular memory is stored in your brain. So let's go with this example of you're going to go out to dinner with a friend. And so you pick a day, you pick a time, you pick a restaurant, and the day comes, you're driving to the restaurant, you're aware of your surroundings, you know that you have the air conditioning on and that it's summertime, and you get to the restaurant, you're seated, and you're waiting for your friend, you're texting them, they're not showing up, you're feeling annoyed or frustrated, and you wait a little bit longer, they still don't come. You leave the restaurant. So you can think of this memory, right? This experience that you had, and there's anger associated with it, your frustration that your friend didn't show up. And you can think about it like putting it in a file, and it goes in the filing cabinet in your brain, right? And let's say 2 hours later, your friend calls you and they're so sorry, and their car broke down on the side of the road. They didn't have cell service, and it was, their tire blew, and it was a very scary experience for them. So now you're feeling, you're feeling sorry for your friend that they went through this, and you're not angry with them anymore, right? So you can go back to that file in your brain, and you can update it with and remove the anger and update it with empathy, let's say, and go about your day, right? Or your life. And so a regular memory can be, it's time-stamped and it can be updated. So now I'm going to give you an example of a traumatic memory. So let's say you are out, you're shopping, and you are going to go across the street to the supermarket to buy dinner for your friends, and you're thinking about everything that you need to buy and you get to the corner, the light turns green, you start to walk, and all of a sudden there's a car that comes out of nowhere, and you fight or flight, the amygdala starts sending that signal, you see the car coming, you jump out of the way, and now you're safe, right? You didn't get hit by the car. But that the body sensations, the heart racing, it's overwhelming. And so even though you know that you're safe, right, the memory doesn't immediately get updated and say, okay, now I'm safe. No, you're still in that trauma response. And let's say years later now, when you are outside with your kids, and all of a sudden you hear that same loud boom that you heard right before the car came racing by, and that triggers this that same response in your body, the heart racing, the fear that something's going to go wrong. And the thing with traumatic memories is that they're not organized, they are not sequential, they are not time tagged, and they can't be updated in that same way. And so they get stored differently in the brain. And so what EFT and tapping can do is that it helps to shift, like I said before, how your response to the trigger. So it's not going to erase the memory, but it is going to help you stay calm the next time you are, the next time that trigger you're exposed to that trigger, whatever that may be, the sound, the smell, or visually seeing something. And so this process is it can be so helpful and so gentle, and it can help you move through these traumatic experiences that can be, really, really affecting you on a daily basis. Okay, so those are my explanation of EFT and what it is and a little bit of the science on how it works. And now I'm going to move into showing you where the tapping points are. So if you can turn on your cameras, I know that some of you do have them on. I just invite everybody to do it again. I would love for you to tap with me here. So I'm just going to show you where the points are and just invite you to tap with me. So the first point is on the pinky side of the hand. You can tap on either hand. It doesn't matter which one. I tend to tap with my right hand because I'm a righty. And you always just want to be mindful of your breath. Breathing is an important part of that. So taking deep breaths as we're doing this. The next point is the center of the head. And it's like if you go to the doctor and they're measuring how tall you are, just that right in the center. And so you can do it with an open palm like I'm doing it here, or you can bring those fingertips together and do it like that. There's no wrong way of tapping. So, and if any of these points are bothersome for whatever reason, you can skip over them. The next point is the start of the eyebrows. And you can do one. I tend to do two. Most people, many of my clients will say, if I don't do both, I feel uneven. And then the side of the eyes, under the eyes, under the nose, onto the chin crease. And for the chin crease one, and also for the nose one, sometimes I tend to do it with two fingers like this. Sometimes people like to do it with the side of their finger, also another option. And then the next point is the collarbone. So for the collarbone, we have this, center like divot thing here, and you're going to go down about an inch and then over about an inch, inch and a half. So you're really on the fleshy part underneath the bone. So this is one way, using both hands like this. Or you can just bring one hand to the center and kind of use your thumb to hit one point and your index finger to hit the other point. And then the next point is underneath the arm. So it's about 2.5 inches from the armpit. For women, it's the center of the bra strap. And then the last point is the top of the hand between the pinky and the ring finger. And I tend to bring my hand onto my heart simply because I find this calming. And that's it. Those are the main points of the protocol. Now, I will say there are additional points, right? Like, so how I was talking about acupuncture before, when you go to an acupuncturist, they are putting those needles in all over your body. So there are additional points. However, these are the points that we use for this EFT protocol. And when we do that tapping, we call it a round simply because we're going around in a circle. I will share some additional points simply because I find them helpful, right? So if you are either at work and you start to feel overwhelmed, or if you're in a meeting and you start to feel stressed out, maybe you don't want to be the person sitting there tapping your head where everybody's looking at you like, what is that person doing, So instead you can simply squeeze by the bed of the nail on each nail, and just squeeze gently at the bed of each nail and breathe. And then this is something I tell my kids too. Like, if you're feeling stressed out before a test, it looks like you're twiddling with your fingers, and you can just squeeze those points and take some deep breaths. And again, just to remind you, as you're tapping or squeezing on these points, what is it doing? It's sending that message to the amygdala saying, hey, you don't need to be making all that cortisol. And it reduces the amount of cortisol being pumped through the body so that you feel calmer, and that prefrontal cortex is going to come back online. So I like to share those additional points because they can come in really handy. Okay. And I should have said this before, but know that when we're doing this, obviously we're touching our face, so you want to make sure that you have clean hands. If you aren't able to wash your hands before doing this, make sure that you don't touch the face points. And also, like I mentioned earlier, noticing which points you really are drawn to, right? Some of these points, if you think about it, are points that we naturally touch, right? So if you're stressed out at work, maybe one of the things you do is like, you put your hands on your head. These are points here. Or some people, when they're thinking, they're just like sitting there tapping their chin. So notice, is that something that you tend to do on your own anyway? And does one of them stand out to you? My favorite point is this hand point. I don't know why, I just really like it. So if something feels good, know that you can always just go to that point, tap and breathe. Okay, so what we are going to do next is we're going to walk through what's called a restricted breathing exercise. So to do this, what I want you to do is just take a deep breath in, and I want you to notice how challenging it is to take that deep breath in. So on a scale of 1 to 10. So if it's really easy to get that breath in, it would be a 0. And if it's really challenging to get that breath in, it would be a 10. So noticing things like, does your breath feel choppy on the inhale or the exhale? Does your chest feel tight? Sometimes people say they feel it in their ribs. Just noticing how that breath feels, the quality of your breath, and give it a score, again, on that scale of 0 to 10, 0 being easy peasy, no problem getting the breath, 10 being challenging. So that's one thing that we're going to rate. And then there's going to be one other thing. But first, I'm just going to give you all a moment to take that deep breath in and give yourself a score. So let's do that. Everybody take a deep breath. And let it go. For me, I'm going to say I'm at about a 5 right now. So if you need to write it down, otherwise just keeping it in your mind. And then taking another deep breath. And on this breath, what I want you to do is count on the inhale and count how long it takes you to get the full breath in, and then count how long it takes you to get the breath out. And again, there's no right or wrong way to counting, but just try to be consistent with your counting. And these are 2 things that we're going to do after the practice to see if the numbers shift at all. So then everybody take a moment to take a deep breath in. So for me, it was my inhale was an 8, my exhale was a 9. So again, writing that down if you need to, and I tend to, because that's just, I need to. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I would love to have a volunteer be what I call my echo, and all you will need to do is repeat after me. So we're going to tap on the points. I'm going to say a sentence, and then I would ask that you repeat after me. So who would like to be my volunteer? Any takers? Come on. I don't bite, I promise.
I will.
Gary, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. So we're going to come to the side of the hand. And Carrie, when you were seeing the quality of your breath, what did you notice?
It kind of hurt in my lungs.
Okay. It felt like tight? Is that how you would? Okay. Okay. So we're just going to tap, and then I'm going to say a sentence and you just repeat me. Even though my breathing is constricted.
Even though my breathing is constricted.
I'm acknowledging how it feels.
I'm acknowledging how it feels.
Even though my breathing feels constricted.
Even though my breathing feels constricted.
I'm honoring how I feel in this moment.
I'm honoring how I feel in this moment.
Even though my breathing feels constricted.
Even though my breathing feels constricted.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
I'll move to the top of the head. My breathing feels constricted.
My breathing feels constricted.
The eyebrows. My breathing feels constricted.
My breathing feels constricted.
Side of the eyes. My breathing feels constricted.
My breathing feels constricted.
Under the eyes. This constriction in my breath.
This constriction in my breath.
Under the nose. All of this constriction that I'm feeling.
All of this constriction that I'm feeling.
Onto the chin. This constriction in my breathing.
This constriction in my breathing.
Collarbone. I feel this constriction in my chest.
I feel this constriction in my chest.
Under the arm. All of this constriction that I'm feeling.
All of this constriction that I'm feeling.
I feel this tightness in my chest.
I feel this tightness in my chest.
And then take a deep breath in and let it go. And now granted, that was just one round, right? Do you notice anything when you take that deep breath in? Does it feel any different at all? And it's totally okay to tell me no that it doesn't, but I'm just
Honestly,
asking.
yeah, it felt
Yeah.
less, it felt looser, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, like it wasn't as tight.
Right. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, right. It's pretty amazing that just one round can help. Now, I will say, if there is anybody who or ask, is there anybody who feels like after doing that, their breath feels more constricted? Because sometimes that can happen, and I want to just acknowledge that, because it does not mean that tapping doesn't work for you. It simply means that you need to keep tapping, and is actually an indication that tapping will work for you. You just need to keep tapping. And it's kind of comes back to when we bring our attention to something, sometimes it can feel more intense, right? Whether that's a physical sensation or an emotional sensation. So I just want to throw that out there just in case anybody is feeling that way. So I would just ask everybody to take a moment, check back in, see if your number has shifted at all. If it has, feel free to share that information in the chat. And if it hasn't, you can share that as well. And then let's do, so Carrie, what was your number to start with, and what would you say that your number is now on the quality of your breath?
To start with, it was on a 6, and I would say probably a 4. I mean, it wasn't like super significant, but it definitely.
Okay.
But
And how do you know that it's a 4 and not a 6? What feels different?
I generally have some asthma, a little, like I have asthma, and sometimes it bothers me and sometimes it doesn't. So I can feel when it's crackly when I breathe, and it didn't feel that way on the second breath.
Okay, great. So let's, if you'll still be my volunteer, let's do another round and see if we can get it any lower than a 4 for you. And everybody else, I would, just continue to tap with me, and also repeating the words too. And that's just a side note. When working in group work, it's called borrowing benefits. So even though some of the words might be specific to Carrie, still repeat them, and then you can tune back into your issue, and you can still feel the shift. Okay, so it's coming back to the side of the hands, taking a deep breath. Even though there's still some constriction,
I'm
open to seeing if tapping will help more. Even though there's still some tightness in my chest. I'm honoring how I feel in this moment. Even though there's still some constriction in my chest. I love and accept myself. This constriction in my chest. There's still a little tightness there. This constriction in my chest. Under the eye. I still feel some constriction in my breathing.
I still feel some constriction in my breathing.
I'm at a 4 right now.
I'm at a 4 right now.
This constriction that I feel.
This constriction that I feel.
This constriction in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
I feel this constriction in my chest.
I feel this constriction in my chest.
There's still some constriction there.
There's still some constriction there.
And then everybody take a pause and take a deep breath in. Again, noticing the quality of the breath and if that has shifted at all. And then everybody take another deep breath in and do the counting and see if the counting has changed as well. So for me, for the counting, my numbers were extended on by 2 on the inhale and on the exhale. Carrie, what did you notice after that second round?
So I noticed that there wasn't tension in my shoulders
Okay.
after that. And I hadn't even noticed that the first time around. So that was a definite improvement. And it also improved my inhale and exhale by 2.
Okay, great. So you said you were at a 4 before. Would you say that the number shifted again?
Yep. I would probably say I'm getting closer to like a 1 or 2 even, because like all that tension just went away. And
amazing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Oh, I was skeptical.
Yeah, I totally get that. Like I was too. And I don't know, if someone had told me 5 years ago when I was first introduced to this that I would have gone on to get certified and be teaching this, I would have been like, that is some crazy, you know. But it has helped me so much. So I'm so glad that you noticed a difference too. I'd love to see if there was someone who has like an ache or pain, or if there's a physical place where you feel like you're manifesting your stress right now, and see if we can do maybe a round or 2 and see if that could help someone. If there's another person who would like to volunteer. Pam, in your neck. Pam, would you be willing to share with me a little bit more detail of what you're feeling in your neck?
Sure. It's just always stressful in my neck and my shoulder area. Sometimes to the headache.
Okay. And what does the sensation itself feel like?
It's pretty painful.
Painful? Okay.
Probably swelling a little bit, maybe.
Okay.
Soft to the touch.
Sort of the touch. Okay. And if you had to give it a number on that scale of 1 to 10 of how intense it was for you right now, what number would you give it?
Sorry, I lost you.
Yeah, I think you froze there. Did you hear what I said?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I said, if you had to give it like gauge it on a scale of 1 to 10 of how intense that sensation that you're experiencing right now is, what would you rate it?
Today, actually, it felt better from what we were doing.
Okay.
I would say I started with maybe a 7 in pain, and I'm probably to a 5 now.
Okay, so we're at a 5. Okay, so let's do a round or 2 and see if we can get that number down for you.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll come to the side of the hand to start. And now if everybody else has a physical issue going on, just tune into your own physical issue. And again, we're just going to use the words for Pam. And then we can everybody else can check back in after to see if that's shifted for them. Even though I have this painful feeling in my neck and my shoulders.
Even though I have this painful feeling in my neck and my shoulders.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
Even though I have this, did you say it was like stress and anxiety, or stress?
I would say it's more stress.
Okay. Even though I have this stress in my shoulders.
Even though I have this stress in my shoulders.
And it feels like a 5 right now.
And it feels like a 5 right now.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
Even though my shoulders are sore to the touch
Even though my shoulders are sore to the touch,
and it feels like painful swelling,
it feels like painful swelling.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
I'm open to seeing if tapping will help.
Come to the top of the head. This painful swelling feeling in my shoulders.
This painful swelling feeling in my shoulders.
The eyebrows, they're sore to the touch.
They're sore to the touch.
Side of the eyes. This painful feeling in my shoulders.
This painful feeling in my shoulders.
Under the eye. All of this pain I'm feeling in my, is it neck and shoulders or just your shoulders?
Neck and shoulders.
All this pain in my neck and shoulders.
All this pain in my neck and shoulders.
Under the nose. I'm feeling all this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
I'm feeling all this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
Onto the chin. My neck and shoulders are sore to the touch.
My neck and shoulder are sore to the touch.
Collarbone. It feels like there's swelling.
It feels like they're swelling.
Under the arm. All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
And the top of the hand. All of this pain, I think it's related to stress.
All this pain, I think it's related to stress.
And then take a deep breath in. And let it go. What did you notice during that round?
Feel a little looser.
A little looser. Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been dealing with this pain in your neck and your shoulders?
Probably good 5 years.
Okay. Was something going on when that first started 5 years ago for you?
I think it's from previous car accidents
Okay.
and just like arthritic, maybe.
Okay. Let's do one more. I think we have time for one more round, and we'll see if we. And do you feel like the number has shifted anymore, or not yet?
I feel looser.
Okay. All right. Cool. So let's come back to the side of the hands. Even though I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
Even though I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
That's just how it is.
That's just how it is.
Even though I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
Even though I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
And I know some of it is stress.
And I know some of it is stress.
Right here, right now, I'm acknowledging it.
Right here, right now, I'm acknowledging it.
Even though I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
Even though I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Top of the head. I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
I've been dealing with this pain for 5 years.
How does it make you feel that you've been dealing with this pain for 5 years?
Kind of like second nature now.
Yeah. Okay. I've been dealing with it so long, it feels like second nature. Side of the eyes. All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders. Under the eyes. All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders. Under the nose. I've been dealing with it for 5 years. All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders. I think you're muted, Pam.
All this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
Onto the collarbone. I've been carrying it around for 5 years.
I've been carrying it around for 5 years.
It's been so long.
It's been so long.
Feels like second nature.
It feels like second nature.
All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
On the top of the hand. All of this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
All this pain in my neck and my shoulders.
And then take a deep breath in. And let it go. And so when we're doing EFT, we start with where we're at, right? We start with the intense feeling, and then we slowly move towards that better feeling. Because and I want to just call that out, because sometimes, you know, with other modalities, it's like, okay, acknowledge the thing that's going on, right? Whether it's you know, dealing with shoulder pain, or if it's like, I feel so angry, and then people will say, okay, well, once you acknowledge it, then think the opposite, right? But that's really hard to do. If you're feeling really sad, it's really hard to flip a switch and be like, okay, I'm happy now. Or if you're in a lot of pain, it's hard to be like, okay, I feel great, you know? So EFT is a process where it really meets you where you are. You're allowed to acknowledge how you're feeling, and then you can really slowly move through it to that better feeling emotion or physical sensation. So did you find your number went down at all after that, Pam?
Yeah, I did.
Good. Amazing.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah, right. I know. It's pretty cool, right?
I'll be tapping a lot, I think, now.
Good. So I know that we want to have a little bit of time for some Q&A, but before that, I do just want to throw out there, because I'm so passionate about working with the caregiver community and doing this work, I do want to offer everyone that's here or even watching the replay for a free 30-minute session with me. And if that is something that you're interested in, you can sign up for that at talkwithlauren.com and get on my calendar. And I hope that you take me up on it, because we all deserve to feel good, and this is a practice that can help us do this. So I will turn it over to Megan for Q&A, or Colton. I'm not sure who's doing the Q&A.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, and thanks so much for doing this session with us. So we did have a couple of questions that came in the chat, if you don't mind answering. So someone said, when doing your demo with Carrie, does the tapping always have to be in that specific order?
You know, like I said, there's no real wrong way of tapping. So if for whatever reason, you know, you accidentally skip a point, or a certain point just is bothersome to you, then you don't have to do it. But typically for the practice of EFT, we do it in that order, and it's just easy because you're going in a circle. So it makes it easy. Okay, which one do I go to next? So yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. Just a couple more. Someone asked, is there a specific number of seconds to tap at each location?
So I would say, I think the EFT guidelines is like at least 7 or 8 times. You'll notice that I did that a lot more than 7 or 8 times. So it's just as long as you need to. I feel like it's like natural, you know, for me, it's like, okay, you'll stay for like a sentence. Sometimes you'll say for a sentence or 2, whatever feels right. So there's no right or wrong way to do it, or how long you should stay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So when tapping with 2 hands, do you tap in sync, or do you go back and forth between each hand?
I tend to tap in sync, I think, for the most part, but sometimes it does get off. Again, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Whatever feels best to you.
Thank you. Just a few quick more here. So when people are trying to tap on their own, how do they choose the words when tapping?
Yeah. So this is a question that I get a lot. So you can keep it really simple, right? So if it's an emotion, an intense emotion that you're feeling, you can just say that same emotion over and over, right? I'm so sad, or I'm so frustrated, whatever the emotion is. If it's a physical pain, this sharp pain in my shoulder, this sharp pain in my shoulder, and just stick with the same word. So that's one option. And for beginners, that's typically what I say. The other option is if you're very upset about like a situation, perhaps, it's also like you could call, I like to think of it as like calling your best friend and letting them know what's going on. And so you're just kind of, just think of it as talking to your best friend, and you're just talking and tapping and telling them about your day and moving through it.
Awesome. All right, last one here. How long will the results of tapping last?
Okay, so that's also a question I get, and It depends, right? It depends on the person. It depends on the situation that you're tapping on. So sometimes you can tap on something and then it can go away for good. For me, I will say, you know, in that first session that I described to you, my TMJ pain was drastically better after that. And I have, because up to that point, I was dealing with, you know, all sorts of things, medication, night guard, all of that. I don't have to do that now, but when I start to feel the stress and the overwhelm in my neck and my jaw, I do have to tap. So it's not that I don't ever feel it, but I'm now able to keep it under control. So the answer, I guess, is really just, it depends on you and your situation.
Great, thank you. And thank you to Pam and to Mary for our other volunteers today. And thanks, Lauren, for the session. So I'm just going to quickly announce our giveaway winners. So congratulations to Sarah Coppola, Carrie Fisher, Mary Catherine Booth, and Sherry Burke. So please email us directly at events@elizabethdole.org with a good mailing address, and we will get those yoga mats sent over to you. So Lauren, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
I would just say, like, if you're intrigued by this, keep exploring it. I mean, that is what I did, and it really has had such a profound impact on my life. And even if you're just tapping, even if you just walk away from this with one point to tap and breathe, it's another tool to put in your toolbox for when you start to feel overwhelmed. And I'm glad that I'm honored that I was able to come here and teach you all about it today. And if anyone has additional questions after this, please feel free to reach out and definitely take me up on the 30-minute session. So thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Yeah, thanks so much for doing this with us, and thanks everyone for joining. If you are not already registered with HHCC, we encourage you to join our Facebook group for updates. Our group is an inclusive community for military and veteran caregivers of all service eras. If you care for a wounded, ill, or injured service member or veteran, we would love to welcome you into our community. Just visit hiddenheroes.org/register to get started. Be on the lookout for a follow-up email from us that will include the recording of today's meeting, some of Lauren's resources and organization information, and the link to register with Hidden Heroes. Don't forget to register for our next C3, Maintaining Balance Online Yoga for Caregivers, on June 8th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's next week. To register, visit hiddenheroes.org/C3. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. And a big thanks to our partners at Wounded Warrior Project and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs for supporting our C3 series. We hope you enjoyed today's C3. Stay in touch and have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.